How would earning $100,000 in revenue a year change your life? Would you be able to never worry about how you're going to pay that next bill? Perhaps you would be able to spend more time with your kids or doing something that you enjoy. Or maybe it's you'll have more freedom of choice. Where you go on vacation, when you go, what you do, more freedom in general. Well, it'll mean something different to every single person that watches this video, but they all have one thing in common, and that is that you can do this through launching and scaling a home staging company. So in this video, I want to share with you how you can hit 100,000 in revenue this year if you launch your staging business today. There are two steps in this process, but the first step is to choose a signature service. Now, there is a variety of services that you can offer in your staging business. However, I teach and advise my clients to only choose one. And here's why. If you want to scale fast, you're going to scale faster by focusing on only building one service. The reason for this is you'll have one focus. You will learn one system, one service, and the biggest way to drive results to that service, and you can speak to one ideal client. If you have a split focus of offering many services and being everything to everyone, you don't become known as the expert in that one area of expertise. And so, this one service should drive 80% of your revenue on the way to 100,000 in sales. So let's break down what are the three services. So the first service I'm going to share with you today is staging for sale. Now, this is probably naturally what you thought of when you thought of launching a staging company. This is taking vacant properties and furnishing and styling them for sale. And so what this service looks like is that the client would pay you, you would stage their property, they would pay you for that 6-week rental of everything that you've placed in there. Then when the property sells or the client requests, you then remove the staging and move it to your next client. Now, the profit margin on a service like this is between 75 to 90%. Now, of course, on your first stage, you're going to have to fund the kit. However, you don't need to do that with your own funds. You can use that client's first payment to fund that kit. There's a completely whole different video that I've recorded on that, which I'm going to link here, which you can go and watch if you don't yet know the business model. The reason the profit margin on a service like this can be between 75 to 90% is that your only expense once you own the kit is to move that kit from A to B. So your expenses in the transportation and manpower to move everything from the first property to the second property. This is one of my favourite services because I believe the industry is still growing and there's not as much competition in this as there is in the second service that I'm going to share with you. Also, I do love the profit margins and the creativity. Also, I do love the profit margins that this service will bring. It's actually some of the highest out of the three services that I'm going to share with you. And then thirdly, I do love the creativity that you can add to this role because essentially you are furnishing this for aesthetic purposes and not essentially thinking about, is this functional? Now, the second service that you can offer in your staging business is furnishing service accommodation properties. Service accommodation is typically known as a short-term rental property. You may also know this as vacation rentals, Airbnb rentals, corporate rentals, properties that are rented night by night or at least short term. Now, this is a completely different service to what you do in Stage for Sale. Stage for Sale, the client rents everything from you, whereas in a service like this, they actually purchase everything that you place in the property. Now, the reason for that is that the property is going to be used and so is the furniture and everything that you place in there. This goes beyond just the aesthetics. We're not just styling and furnishing the place, we're kitting it out as if someone is going to live there. So this will include everything from like the TV to the crockery to the toaster, everything someone would need to live in that space. Now, because this is a buy and sell model, you're going to be either adding markup to every item that you place into the space, or you're going to be charging a percentage that is a fee for installing everything. Now, on average, the profit margin you'll see on a service like this is anything between 15 to 25%. Now, that does sound a whole lot lower than what you can offer with staging for sale and the profit margins that you will get. However, sometimes we can see the ceiling of what someone will pay for a service like this being a lot higher because of the type of revenue they're going to see in return for that space. And so this can range anywhere between a budget property for a couple of $1,000s up to some clients spending $25,000, $30,000, $40,000 on a really premium property. Another way to drive up the revenue number is to stage multiple of these properties at once in things like apartment blocks or multi-units. Now, the third service you can offer in your staging business is house doctoring or consultations. This is likely where you're going to go to homeowners' homes and give them practical tips and advice on how to prepare their property best for sale. Now, this is completely different because we don't actually have to hold stock or deliver any physical furniture items. Whilst you may have this in your kit of offerings, really this is a consultation service, and so your only expense is your travel to the property and your time. So we see pretty much an 100% profit margin on a service like this. However, the ceiling of what you can charge is nowhere near as high as the other two services. You're likely going to charge up to $1,000 per consultation, and that would be the higher end of the spectrum. So whilst this service is low risk, not a lot of cost, it doesn't really have the scalability as the other two services. So part 2 of this process is to choose the right business model for you. There are 2 options. You can go low ticket, high volume, or high ticket and low volume. So let's talk about what this looks like. A low ticket service would be servicing the end of the market that is on the less expensive end. You might decide to opt for this service because you are in a lower budget area. However, if you're in a higher budget area, this might be that you specialize in furnishing smaller properties. Now, on the higher end of the market, where you're charging higher ticket, you're going to be working with premium properties with premium prices. And likely, you'll only need to work with a handful of clients to earn the same income as what you could earn with the lower end ticket. So I want to break this down by service to really show you and give you a visual of what this can look like for each service on both ends of the market. So I've got my pen, let's do it. So let's first look at staging for sale. I want to break this down for each service. Let's start with the staging for sale service. Now, the goal is to generate 100,000 in revenue. If I'm going to go on the low ticket end of the market, let's say on average, I'm going to charge 2,000. Now, at 2,000, I would need to sell 100 divided by 2 equals 50. So I would need to stage 50 properties per year to earn 100,000 if I was going to be offering the lower ticket. Now, let's say we take the average of 80% profit margin. I'm going to earn 80k in profit. Now, let's take this, but flip it and do the high ticket option. So with high ticket, I am going to earn 10k per stage. Now, this could be a premium property, or it could be much larger properties that I'm staging. So with this, I only need to stage 10 properties per year to earn the 100k in revenue. Now, based on the same profit margin, I am going to earn 80k in profit. Now, both services generate the same amount of profit. So what's more attractive here is the high ticket, low volume model. Because when it comes to running a service-based business like a staging business, there is a huge difference having to stage 50 properties a year versus 10. There's less expense, there's less work, there's less admin, but most importantly, we need less leads. To stage 10 properties per year, if I convert my leads into business at about a 50% conversion rate, I only need 20 leads per year. Whereas on the low ticket end of the spectrum, if I convert at 50%, I need 100 leads a year. And so if you're starting out, you don't have a huge audience, this is the easiest route to 100k, offering the staging for sale service. Now let's work this out with the service accommodation side of offerings. Now with service accommodation, let's do the exact same working out and let's work this out on low ticket, high volume, high ticket, low volume with the goal of 100,000. So with an 100k goal, if we go onto the low ticket end of the market, and let's say that the low ticket is 5k, to earn 100,000, I need to do 100 divided by 5. I need to stage 20 properties per year. Now remember, this is a completely different profit margin. With a service like this, we have a 20% profit margin, meaning the profit on a service like this is going to be 20,000, which is about 1k per property. Now let's go to the high ticket version of this. So let's say, for example, and I'm going to change this up a little and say that we're working on multiple units. And so this project is going to be an 100k project, meaning that to earn 100,000, I only need to do one of these projects a year. Now the profit margin on multi-units can actually be much higher than single units. So for this, I'm going to factor in a 30% profit margin. Okay, so let's break this down. Now the reason that a profit margin can be higher on when you're furnishing multi-units is because you're only visiting one location and you're condensing all of that work time into 1 week, 2 weeks, however long it takes you to do it. Whereas when you're working on the low ticket, this is 20 separate properties and 20 different days you're staging them. So the high ticket doesn't only have usually a higher profit margin installed into it, but once again, when we look at the lead flow on this, if we convert a 50% conversion, we only need 2 leads a year to pull off a project of this size, because we'll convert one and there'll be 30k profit built in. On the lower ticket, to generate 20 sales, you're going to need at least 40 leads a year. So your marketing has to be more consistent, bigger, reach more people. So once again, the high ticket, low volume business model wins. Now let's work this out for consultations and house doctoring. So if my goal is 100k with house doctoring services and I'm offering consultations, the low ticket end would be, let's say, $250 per installation, per consultation. I need to do 100 divided by 0.25. Let me get my calculator out for this one. I would have to do 400 consultations in order to generate 100,000 in revenue. Now with 100% pretty much profit margin, I will earn 100k in profit, but I would have to speak with and travel to 400 properties. Now let's take the high ticket end of this. If I charge 1,000 per install, then I would only need to do 100 consultations. So we quartered this number and the profit would still be 100,000 in profit. But once again, the high ticket, low volume business model wins because to generate 100 consultations, I may need 200 leads or more. Whereas on the low ticket end, we're looking at about an 800 leads that we would need in 1 year. So the question is, what would I do if I were you? Well, if the answer isn't clear yet, I would opt for a high ticket, low volume business model. You need fewer clients, they're higher value clients, and you can provide a premium service that gets standout results. It is the fastest way to scale if you currently don't have a large audience, you don't have large lead flow. This is the fastest way to generate 100,000 in your business. Now, I teach more in depth on this inside what I call my 5-day challenge from 0 to 6-figure stager. We run these multiple times per year and I would love for you to join us. I'm going to link that in the description below, so go join us and I will help show you how you can build an $100,000 staging business.